at the end of a long semester, but I hope you are relaxing now at this point. Many of you are here today because you are either faculty or students in our campus's deep and diverse offerings in media studies. But even so, you may not be aware of how much we do and the many different kinds of media studies and practice we offer at U of H. Our faculty include, our faculty and resources are spread across several schools and departments and include filmmakers, photographers, animators, broadcasters, journalists, playwrights, screenwriters, performers and directors, historians, sociologists, cultural scholars and critics, software engineers, data specialists, web designers, advertisers, and business experts. The Media and Moving Image Initiative, MMI for short, was founded to coordinate and enhance these different resources. This year, for example, with our first programming funds, MMI helped support guest lectures on Korean cinema and French philosophy, a seminar on Indian film, and master classes on film production and distribution. The Student Prize competition that we are celebrating today is another inaugural initiative, and something of which I am especially proud. Our students study and work in so many different kinds of media that a mere film competition would not be sufficient. As you'll hear when we announce the winners, the MMI Student Prize competition allows entrants to submit in one of three categories: critical studies, creative work, or applied technology and media. For the competition jurors, this made a particularly challenging but fun assignment. They compared photo and video essays with non-narrative animation, performance art and documentary films, juxtaposed scholarly writing with mixed media, and sometimes even reassigned entries from one category to another. The jurors and I will say more about the individual categories and winners, but before introducing our keynote speaker, I'd like to say a few words of thanks. The MMI initiative is supported by the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences, and we are grateful to Class Dean Antonio Tillis and his staff in the Dean's Office. In launching this competition and reception, I'm grateful to Keith Houck, Wendy Wood, Tara Britton, Valeria Gonzalez, Jesus Perez, Linda Davis, Flora Vasquez, and especially Bilal Trufant, who built the competition's online submission and scoring platform. I'll say this again later, but you can support MMI by texting the words Build MMI to 71777. And now a few words about our keynote speaker. Today we are lucky to have with us Jenny Waldo, a screenwriter, producer, and director based in Houston. A graduate of the University of Southern California's School of Cinematic Arts, Ms. Waldo produced the 2013 feature, The Preacher's Daughter, and the 2004 documentary about film editing, The Cutting Edge. By the way, I forgot to mention this to Jenny, but I often assign The Cutting Edge in intro to film classes. And if there's any parents or family members in the audience who still don't know what your kids are doing, I really recommend that documentary. It's a great way to really appreciate the complexities of media production. A former program director with the Southwest Alternative Media Project, SWAMP, better known as, and now a full-time faculty member at HCC's filmmaking program, Ms. Waldo recently took a Best Short Film Award for her most recent work, Acid Test, which was shot in Houston with a Houston-based, majority female cast and crew. Please join me in welcoming Jenny Waldo.
And everybody for coming out here tonight. I'm really excited. I've never done a keynote speech, so I'm honored and excited about this, especially when it comes to this crossover between film theory and filmmaking. I think it's vital for theory and analysis to merge with, or at least have this kind of relationship with the mechanics and the artistry of filmmaking. I began my career as a filmmaker because of film theory. I was an English major at Oberlin College, and this was before they started their film program. And film theory was part of our studies. And I had grown up doing 35mm black and white photography. I was a writer, I read, I did a bunch of stuff, and I had just never really thought about movies as something that you could read the way that you could read and analyze a book and a text. And it just sparked something in me where all of a sudden the things that I had been doing I started thinking about, well, how are films made? And I guess people have jobs doing this stuff, and what is this thing, So I went to Los Angeles, I did an internship on the Paramount lot. I went back after I graduated to Washington, D.C., where I'm from originally, and I started working in the documentary world, and then went to USC for my MFA in film production, and I kind of moved from film theory into making content and studying that and understanding it. And it's one of those things where I really feel like this idea of understanding how and why movies move us is critical when you are a maker, because then you can harness that and use that in your content itself. It was kind of like therapy to me, understanding theory. It was like, oh, okay, this is why, or like this is an interesting idea of kind of how art meets people in the audience, and something kind of magical happens in the in-between. I had a bunch of strange influences growing up. My mother is from Czechoslovakia, and loved all these artsy foreign films, and my dad was from Florida and loved Star Trek and Star Wars, and so I kind of grew up watching a lot of like mimes playing tennis and Darth Vader. It was very odd. Again, what I love about this initiative is, again, this kind of interdisciplinary approach. Filmmaking itself is an interdisciplinary task. You have to write it, you have to shoot it, you need technicians, you need lawyers, you need accountants, you need, fundraisers, you need artists and actors and wardrobe and food and music and all these things. So what you all are doing here is echoes, the process itself, and I think it's vital to that process. Filmmaking itself is hard work. As glamorous as it is, I often get this whole like, oh, it's so cool that you're a filmmaker, followed up with this, I really don't know how films are made. And I was that person too, right? I didn't know what went into it. And one of the things that I have found over the years that, again, what I find really interesting about this initiative that you guys are doing here is this idea that people don't actually understand their role as audience members, as content makers. Everybody's posting out on social media, and they are media makers. Everybody in this room, I'm sure, has a digital footprint, right? But they don't understand kind of how they're doing it, why they're doing it, how it influences them. And so I think it's critical for people like you to do this kind of study and to understand it from all these different sides. So I think it's, you guys are the bridge to that kind of understanding. And what I think is important, and again, based from my studies, going kind of from film theory to film production, for anybody who's really entrenched in the film theory, it is really cool. It is really interesting and fascinating. But at the end of the day, don't forget the people that are actually living and consuming this work and making sure that your theory actually reflects reality, right? Because we get all wrapped up in like this theoretical jargon, and we forget the people that we're trying to represent. And the same is true with filmmakers. We get so wrapped up in the art that we forget our audience, and we don't think about, well, are they receiving the message that I'm trying to give them, right? So it's a contract. Film is a kind of art that isn't just, I'm gonna paint in a room by myself and hopefully somebody will buy it. Film is something where you are doing it for other people, always. You're doing it for yourself too. I do it even when I have corporate jobs, 9 to 5, data analysis, and, and I do it when I'm, making films. It's always about, you're kind of always that creator, that artist, but at the end of the day, you want somebody to connect, right, with it. So I often tell my students at Houston Community College to use psychology and our understanding of ourselves, however misguided or mistaken that is, to make their movies and to influence their movies. Whether it's a social media post or even a corporate video, you are using images and sound and text and people and wardrobe and all these different elements to manipulate your audience into understanding the content that you're giving them or to be moved in some way. And so I think that media can be this cathartic, safe space where we can understand or process our own experiences in this kind of in-between, between the screen and you. It can be a safe space to experience things that you've never experienced and hopefully never will, but you come away with a new understanding of it. And it can also just be a place of entertainment. And I think a lot of times, and especially as a parent now, we kind of look at, people watching stuff or like the Fast and the Furious or the Avengers movies, and we're kind of like, we're dismissive. It's like, oh, well, that's not interesting, or that's not art, or that's not important. Or like my kids watch unboxing videos and like people they watch other people play video games. And I just don't understand it. I don't respect it. I don't, I just, I'm like, this is stupid. Why are you doing this? Why don't you just make something? But my husband once told me this quote that I think was paraphrased by Neil Gaiman, but was originally G.K. Chesterton that said, fairy tales don't tell children that dragons exist. Children already know that dragons exist. Fairy tales tell children that dragons can be killed. And even though he was trying to convince me that it was fine for our 4- and 5-year-old daughters to watch Lord of the Rings, what was important about it that stayed with me was this idea that even though we might be trying to escape from the scary things in the world, movies can give us a place to understand and to process, and that we really should not dismiss other people's consumption of media and how they consume it. Because this is how we communicate today. It's in our images. Our restaurant menus are changing into these digital moving images. They're, those menus, every time I go to like Smashburger or Cafe Express or all those places, it's like moving now, and I'm like, I can't read it. But this is how we communicate. Emojis are how we communicate. At least my kids communicate that way. They send memes and they send GIFs and they send these images and text that mean something to them. And that is communication. That is, and we have to understand it and understand it at their level, not at what our judgment of it is from our level, because that's native to them, So this study is not just about studying kind of the things that you love, but also kind of where it's going. Because technology and consumption is changing radically. In the 20 years that I've been doing filmmaking, I started out shooting on film. We were still shooting and editing on film. And now, I can pick up my phone and do everything all on my phone, right? And it's amazing how it's changed. And I can't bemoan what's gone, I can't say, oh, well, it was better then. And, it probably wasn't. Things change, and oftentimes they change for the better. But we have to understand it, and we have to kind of stay up with the times, because if we don't, we're going to lose that chance to communicate with people and influence them. And ultimately, we are in the business of manipulating people. This is obviously not a new concept and has been used for good or ill. We've got Triumph of the Will, we've got voting processes with Kennedy versus Nixon and Facebook in the last election. Media influences people, it changes people's lives. And so we need to be able to understand that and harness that signal and use that power. Places like Los Angeles and New York, they're always going to be kind of pillars of the industry and have a lot of that study going on. But I have found, being here for about 15 years, it's so much more interesting to be part of the Houston scene, because Houston is the most diverse city in the country. It is, has industry, oil, medicine, art. It's got some of the top of the line business and creative stuff going on here. It is incredibly international. When I first got here, I went to the grocery store and saw women in full burqas, and I was like, that was not what I was expecting to see in Texas. I didn't know anything about Texas, other than the stereotype. Yet, there is still that regional culture, that regional kind of love of land and enjoying life that is very much Texas, right? And what I found with my short film that's been going around through festivals the past couple of years is I've met so many regional filmmakers. And especially when they're young, I'm like, oh great, you had an awesome film, it won some awards, are you moving to LA? And everybody has told me no. Like everybody. And that shocked me. As somebody who did the LA thing, I'm kind of like, well, isn't that what you're supposed to do, But they were like, no, I can make my living, I can live my life, I can make the work that I want to make, I've got a community, and I can do it wherever I am. And that's what you see here in Houston. It's growing, it's problematic, it's, there are all these discussions and arguments and people doing different things in different places, but Houston is an incredibly exciting city just to be in because of all the different people that are living here and working here, all the different stories that are here. It is an interdisciplinary town, right? It is everything that you need in terms of your studies right here. And it offers opportunity because it's not jaded and overdone the way like Los Angeles is, where you have to get permits for everything and it's so complicated to make anything. So I find the revolution in filmmaking, it always tends to come from the outside. And there are all these things right now with the Me Too and all the different movements and changes and how we need to change the industry that are happening. And all of that change needs to happen. Some of it is happening. But so much of that change is coming from the outside. It's coming from the people in the regions that are watching movies, that are making movies. Once upon a time, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg were the revolution, We don't think about it, but they were. Like, we didn't have those kinds of movies before they came around. We had studio films. So, now we've got Ava DuVernay, who's basically building her own empire, like Tyler Perry, And so it's coming from the outside, and it's kind of breaking in, and it's creating different models of change. And so I think it's important, especially when you're outside of the system, to be that model of change, and that's one of the things I'm trying to do with my first feature film, which is supposed to shoot, it will be shooting in 2 weeks. But to be that model of change and to again, take what we see and what we're studying and what we're understanding, and not just regurgitate what we're already seeing from Hollywood, but to do something with it and to do something that's unique to you and your voice and your region and whatever story it is that you have to tell. So the question is, how are you going to harness this power? Media is everywhere. It's in all things. It's art, it's business, it's entertainment, it's passing the time, waiting in the elevator or in line. It's on our phones, it's on the side of the buildings, it's on our restaurant menus, and who knows where it's gonna be. But at the end of the day, storytelling hasn't changed. Technology has changed, but storytelling hasn't. Humanity hasn't changed. And it's critical that we understand the content that we're putting out there and to help make other people aware of the content that they're putting out there. Because it can change the world. And you want to be able to change it for good. So, that's all I got.
Representing the jury today, and the rest of them couldn't make it, but I will be introducing them in the course of making some of the award announcements. So the first category that we're going to award is the critical studies category, and Jenny Ms. Waller has kindly agreed to read the statements about the honorable mention and the winner. Who were the jurors?
Christian, actually, and Tish.
All right, and so Christian I'll say a little bit more about in a moment. Tish Stringer is a faculty member and filmmaker at Rice University and also director of the Center for Digital Media at Rice. And there are longer bios of all of the jurors and of Jenny on the program as well. So Jenny will be introducing, and critical studies. Critical studies was the category that was designed to capture students like who do the kind of stuff that I do, like cultural studies, history of cinema, sociology, journalism, the intersection between media production and human experience, and film theory as well. And so we had some wonderful entries in this. And I should say also that when some of you know when the prize competition was announced, that we only announced category prizes, but the jurors were so impressed with the level of the entries that they elected to offer award honorable mentions as well. So Jenny will start with the honorable mention.
All right. So it is Sylvia Romo Duarte, The Agency and Power in the Female Anatomy. This addresses overly sexualized depiction of female characters by male directors. The writer decided to analyze a particular male-directed Cameroonian film where the writer posited that rather than intending to portray the women as exploited, that the intention was actually to show that the sacrifices of those women, in this kind of sex slavery, that they were actually taking control of their bodies and their souls, and societal norms were crushed by the typical male-generated forces of war and corruption in it. So it was a thoughtful, well-rounded, engaging, and provoking film essay on the part of the reader, and hopefully we'll explore further work. So congratulations.
And I should say also that the jury was particularly impressed because the original essay that Sylvia adapted her entry from was originally written in French.
Oh, wow.
So she had to translate the essay from French for the English one.
All right, and then the category winner for the critical studies was a documentary by Shannon Duncan called Modern Day Slavery. And the documentary focuses on local Houston problem of sex trafficking. The film is a wonderful example of how media can be used to educate and agitate for change and to inform people about important social issues. It is well researched, and the filmmakers worked hard to gain access to knowledgeable subjects, and the information is clearly presented. Over the course of the 20-minute documentary, you learn that this problem is local, and what those ripple effects are specific to this world. And the juror applauds these students for making work that they can use in the future for education engagement to improve human rights in our community. So, Congratulations.
Shannon? Then our next category is creative work, and these winners will be announced by Christian Salinas. Christian Salinas is the executive director of QFest, Houston's LGBTQ film festival, which has been running for how many years now? 23 years, and it's an amazing festival that usually takes place in the summer, so you can all get geared up for that soon, right, Christian?
Good evening, everyone. It is my pleasure to announce the winner of honorable mention in the creative category. The winner is Amberina Asta for Visual Stories, Iraq and Shiism, for its series of stunningly composed images celebrating both the country of Iraq and the traditions and culture of Shiism. Each image brings to light a distinctive narrative, and this project as a whole captivates with stunning beauty and clarity of the art, religion, culture, and identity of this particular region. And now we have the winner of the creative category, Taylor Andriazzi for The Lemon of Pink. For its creative qualities and for its concentrations on the female gaze, which empower women and turn male attention on its head. Also, another colleague wrote, handcrafted animation that creates a direct emotional link between the viewer and the animator. Thoroughly enjoyable. Congratulations.
You did all the work. Our third category was applied technology and media, and so this again was intended to capture the non-narrative animators, data visualization, software designers, and application designers, web designers, business and advertising platforms, the juror who was originally intending to announce this was Neil Verma, who is a Houston-based entrepreneur who, among a number of apps that he has launched and sold, founded the iRazoo app, which works in combination with Yahoo and Amazon to bring together home-based web searchers to provide data services. And I believe at this point, what did he say? It's given away up to $65 million
Yes, $65 million in gift cards.
in gift cards. So that was just one of the many apps that he has designed and sold. So the honorable mention in this category goes to, to David Sesteta, A Bad Money Story, Hollywood Ready. And of this, Mr. Verma wrote that the documentary showed great film skills with a good use of color and frame rates, especially slow-mo, and that it was extremely polished video that could easily be handed off to a network like E! Entertainment or MTV. So, David Sesteta. The winner in the applied technology category is, sorry, I've got too many things going on, I can't keep up. Walter Barta for digital monology. Walter's essay is actually a work of critical studies. It's a sort of mix between computers, I guess, media analysis, computer platform analysis, and philosophy, and communication studies, and ethics. And he discusses bias and subjectivity in Google algorithms. And so of this essay, Neil Verma wrote that the essay did a good job analyzing some of the Google algorithm and explaining how the Google algorithm is not perfect and has bias built into the system. Clearly shows a deep understanding of software engineering, while also being as a written essay details the finer points of a malfunctioning system. But it was also a very well-written essay, which is a skill rare among software designers. And then the final award category is Best in Show, and this will again be announced by Christian Salinas, and he'll be reading comments from Rick Ferguson, the Executive Director of the Houston Film Commission, and Tracy Stevenson, Assistant Curator of Film at the Museum of Fine Arts Houston.
So it is my pleasure to announce the Best in Show winner, Taylor Andreazzi for The Lemon of Pink. After multiple viewings of The Lemon of Pink, it's realized that handcrafted animation establishes a direct emotional link between the viewer and the animator. Ms. Andreazzi's film establishes that link and allows the audience to enjoy her vision, as well as grants the freedom of personal interpretation. The Lemon of Pink is artistically and technically proficient and thoroughly enjoyable. And I enjoyed The Lemon of Pink for its surrealist qualities and for its concentration on the female gaze. The colorful landscapes and stop-motion animation technique created an imaginative, otherworldly atmosphere. I felt that the images served to empower women and turn male attention on set. The music and animation were perfectly choreographed, which further developed the concept of the piece. Congratulations.
Taylor's video is only in 1:30, so I apologize. The lighting is not really great, but I'll enjoy this one more time together. For doing such amazing work and submitting into the competition. I'd like to thank their faculty for supporting them and doing all the colleges that MMI serves as well. And also all the students' families for supporting them, because I know some of you maybe wasn't expecting that when you heard your child say that that's what they were going into. So again, if you'd like to support MMI, please text 71777 BUILD MMI. If I could ask the winners to stay for one group photo, and then also please stay longer to meet, mingle, make some more connections between all of you. You could talk to me or Christian if you have the winners, if you have any questions further about some of the other comments that the jurors had about your work. And I hope that you'll all continue enjoying the food and drink that we have here. So thank you again for coming.